All right, hello and welcome to Fantasy Premier League, the D in its journey. Today you are here for Game Week 17 differentials. Now, this has been an interesting video because I've been trying to get in players that are under 10% in ownership because that's generally how you refer to as a differential. Now, there are some players that make this video that are just over that mark, and they've only just risen over that mark this week. So, as far as I'm concerned, there's still differentials, and there's one in there that I've just whacked in there because I think, in comparison to all the midfield ownership, where we're looking at Saka, Palmer, and Salah, and Palmer all have 60% plus ownership, and Saka's almost close to 50. I think this counts as a differential. I think if you're under 15% in the midfield, you're probably a differential. So we're going with that for this particular game week. So without further ado, let's get into it. If you're new, smash the subscribe button and please make sure you like the video. And yeah, let's have a look at what we've come up with this week. So differentials for game week 17. Now there are fixture runs ongoing, and look, this is where it gets a little bit concerning because I'm not sure how good the fixture runs actually are. So Brighton's still in this list because the fixture run, in theory, on paper, still looks amazing. However, having triple Brighton the last 3-4 weeks in general has not worked. Like João Pedro is the only player that I've had from Brighton that's returned to me in this time, and I've owned 4 different Brighton players. So make of that what you want, but it's safe to say that their assets have not been delivering how we've been expecting. In fact, the last 4 games where on paper it looked like 4 easy wins, they haven't even won a game of football. So I'm not even sure how good the fixture run actually is for them. Arsenal, again, attacking wise, they just have not been at it, which is disappointing. Bournemouth, they've been okay. They haven't been amazing. They haven't set the world on fire, but they've been okay. Chelsea, they've been doing what we expected them to do, and they've been cleaning up. Liverpool, obviously, they played with 10 men on the weekend, and that was unfortunate. 2 of the people I recommended last week got sent off. Correa and Robertson, they look like good differentials. Unfortunately, they're now going to be missing, so it's very unlucky if you went with them last week. But some of these things you just can't read. Man City, again, they've got a nice fixture run coming up. Aston Villa away this week is a difficult game, but after that, it looks like a nice run for like the next 5 or 6 weeks. Newcastle, as we're aware, they're in great form, and well, their assets are in great form as well. We'll get into that in a second. And then West Ham, they've been up and down. I'm not sure what roller coaster they're going to be on next, but they're back at home against Brighton, who have been bang average. So I wouldn't rule their assets out just yet. And Southampton, but reality, are Southampton going to get a new manager bounce? They really look like a championship team, and yeah, that's it. So this all leads into, do you hold popular assets and move them on for tricky fixtures? So lots of people got rid of Bruno Fernandes, and he's got 9 points the last 2 weeks. Brian Mbeumo, lots of people moved him on, got 13 points and 10 points the last 2 weeks. I mean, you can't write this stuff up. It is what it is. I'm not sure what better way of describing it other than the fact that, yeah, it's been slightly frustrating for for owners. I've held Fernandez for out, and I'm quite happy holding him now. His fixture run looks really good, and we'll get into him briefly. As you see here, he is making this video. And Brian Mbeumo, I think if you've got him, I think you hold him now as well. Like he's becoming a nice little differential there in the midfield. He's 28% owned last time I checked. So that's 1 in 3 people now own him, which is a lot better than what it was before, where it was almost 1 in 2. So I can foresee a world where I actually end up moving towards bringing Brian Mbeumo back into my team. So look, that's what I'm thinking. But the differentials, these are the players we're going to be covering. In the goalkeepers, Dubravka, Becker, and Henderson. Defenders, these are literally all budget defenders. I can't justify spending a big money of your budget in the defense when there's so many of these options that reality are probably going to score you just as many points as the 7 mil, 6 million defenders moving forward. I mean, we saw Lewis Hall top score in the defense this week, 15 points. He cost me 4.4. No, yeah, 4.4 million originally. Or was it 4.3? It was one of the two. I can't remember. It might have been 4.3. Absolute steal. Midfielders, it's hard to recommend Man City players, but Doku actually looked pretty good against Man United, and I think that he's a lock in that team. And at 6.2, he's someone you've got to discuss. Bowen, Golden, Ahmad, Sarr, Gibbs White, Enzo, Fernandez, Kudos, Kulusevski, Iwobi Jota. There's all really good options in here, and some that are coming back from injury that look amazing. So we're going to delve pretty much mainly into the midfielders today. And then forwards, they haven't really changed too much. The only one that's really changed from last week is Raul and Højlund. I'm going to talk a bit more about him later on as well. I think he might be the next player to just take a burst off. All right, so without further ado, let's get into it and find out what the hell is going on with the differentials this week. So just bear with me. I am obviously away from home in the UK, so when I transition, it can get a little bit funny, but hopefully I've nailed it today. Yes, there we go. I did. All right, so this is my team currently. As I said, the one transfer I've made in was 8 Nori out for Robinson. I've still got 2 free transfers this week, and the differentials honestly, where I'm looking at this particular game week. So, without further ado, let's have a look at the goalkeepers. So, there's only 3 goalkeepers really to talk here. So, we've got Henderson. Now, Henderson has been hit and miss, but his underlying stats have not been too bad. Like, other than the games where they've conceded like multiple goals. So, the Aston Villa game in game week 12, where he conceded 3.11 xG, and Chelsea in game week 3, 2.27. Other than that, he's actually XG numbers wise, they haven't been too bad, Palace. And I think that there's more clean sheets to be had there, especially not next week, this week against Arsenal potentially. But from then on, I mean, we saw Arsenal struggle to break down Everton. I think Palace are not too far away from Everton in terms of defensive numbers. So I really like the run of Crystal Palace after this week. And look, Verbruggen has definitely stunk it up in my goal. So I do intend on getting rid of him after I've been recommending him the last 5 weeks. He's been absolutely appalling, but I can't go on any longer. So that's the end of him. Now, Jordan Pickford, he's still putting out the numbers now. I'm not going to cover him because he's been really good, but he got another clean sheet on the weekend. Like his points since I recommended bringing him in have been unbelievably good. So the next player I want to talk about is Alisson Becker. So he obviously came back in the Liverpool team. Liverpool defensively were not good against Fulham. Let's be honest. They conceded 1.22 xG, conceded 2 goals. Not a good start to have him back in your team, and probably not the right point to bring him in this week either against Tottenham. But after Tottenham, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, it is an amazing run for the Liverpool team in terms of who they're playing from a defensive standpoint. And Alisson is still the cheapest, most reliable way into their defense. He's he's probably the one I'm looking at because obviously I want to triple up on Liverpool, and I'm probably only going to go one defender unless Canade comes back. And at the moment, that's going to be Alisson. Alisson's going to be my defender. It's the cheapest one, and I'm all about cheapness in the defense because it makes no sense to be spending sorry big budget on your defenders. So Alisson's there. Now, if we have to go a fair way down this list to find the next one, we are going to look for a 4.2 in here. Might be on the next page. All right, I'm just going to look him up. Oh no, there he is, Dubravka. Now, there's been an injury to Pope, and it looks like he's going to be out for a substantial period of time, I think. And Martin Dubravka obviously played the game against Leicester, got a clean sheet, and he's owned by 0.7%, which makes him the ultimate differential because no one's got him. I mean, you could really skimp out. Newcastle's run from here is actually pretty good until probably game week 25. They've got Ipswich, Aston Villa, Man United, Spurs, Wolves, Bournemouth, Southampton, Fulham. All are pretty good options there. So I wouldn't say there's worse options out there. So look, he's definitely somewhere you could go. Dubravka looks really good moving forward. In terms of the defense, now there are quite a few defenders that we need to talk about because obviously Aitnori got suspended, so there's lots of people that we can look at. And the first one we're going to look at in this particular video is Lewis Hall. So Lewis Hall's obviously in my team. He's still only owned by 9.1%, and he's off the back of 15 massive points this game week. So, I mean, his attacking numbers have been there the last few weeks, and in reality, there's no reason why they can't continue. And the fixtures, as we've just talked about there with Dubravka, look really good for Newcastle's perspective. And if he's getting those attacking returns, you would think that he's a good likelihood to continue on and probably get a few more. So I really like him from a defensive standpoint. Now, a couple of players that do make this list. So Mark Gay here, I know he's been unlucky the last 2 weeks. He's actually conceded 2 own goals in the last 4 weeks. So he's conceded one against Newcastle and he conceded one against Brighton. But he looks really good from a defensive standpoint, and he's only 4.5 mil. The other player, obviously, is Munoz from Crystal Palace. Obviously, with better attacking numbers, but I just really like that Crystal Palace run. Not this week, but if you're looking to buy soon and you're particularly wildcarding, bringing in Palace assets, I think, is a good play. Like their fixture run coming up is definitely something you need to be aware of. So yeah, I really don't mind him from that kind of perspective. Julian Timber still makes this list. He's still the cheapest way into the Arsenal defence. I bought him in obviously ahead of game week 4 at 14, where he got 14 points. So in the 3 weeks I've had him, he's got me 22. So I'm pretty damn happy with that. And Arsenal's run is still pretty good defensively for the next few weeks. And then it gets a little bit more trickier, obviously, with Spurs and Man City and Villa between 21 and 24. But then it gets really good again. So I think long-term wise, I think Timber's nailed on as the starting right back or left back. And I think he's definitely somewhere where you could go moving forward. Some people brought in Dan Burn. I'm not sure about that particular move. I think that he's eventually going to lose his place in the team. Kirkes, still a really good option. You'll find that all the differentials I'm picking in the defense all have really good attacking potential. He was then, I mean, his 0.06 expected goal involvement against West Ham wasn't the best, but I've definitely seen worse players in defence this year with attacking numbers. And look, realistically, not many teams are keeping clean sheets, so you really want the upside of someone potentially that might be able to get you a goal here or there or whatever. So for me, I don't really mind him at all. The next players I'm actually just going to type in because it's going to be quicker for me to find them. So the next one is still Colwell still makes this list. He's 4.6. He's very bland. I've got him on my team. He normally sits on the bench for me. And that's because Chelsea just have the habit of conceding one stupid goal every week. But in reality, you look at the fixtures coming up, and you would expect that at some point in the near future, he's actually going to keep a clean sheet with all that sea of green in front of him. And he's the reason potentially why I won't go Enzo Fernandez. Because if I go Enzo, I'm going to have to move Colwell out, and that's just a waste of an extra transfer. Whereas I feel like he's a boring pick, but eventually he's hopefully going to start keeping me some clean sheets. All right, so the next one, obviously, we are going to cover is Munoz. Now he is suspended this week. He obviously got his fifth yellow card of the season on the weekend. But moving forward, he has really good fixtures, as we just talked about with Palace, and his attacking threat is way better. He obviously costs 0.2 more than Mark Gahey, which is disappointing. But I think from attacking perspective, when you're putting up these kind of numbers for the season, so he's up to 0.18 expected goals per game, per 90, sorry, and 0.05 expected assists per 90. I think that's a sign that you can go there. So I'm actively looking at potentially bringing him in over the next few weeks. Obviously not going to bring him in until his suspension is over, but as soon as the suspension's done, he's definitely someone I will be looking at. And yeah, I think moving forward, that particular run for Crystal Palace looks amazing. Now, the other players that I do want to talk about are Lenny Yoro. Now, Lenny Yoro I have talked about recently, and he has been rotated in and out. Obviously, as you can see, that the last 3 weeks he has been involved. This week it was from the bench, but I'm expecting moving forward that eventually, once he is fully fit, he is going to make that team. And Man United's run from here is actually pretty good. I'm not sure how good they're going to be defensively. Obviously, Mazraoui picked up a little knock on the weekend, which might boost Yoro's chances of starting moving forward. But it's just going to be one of them weird ones. Depends on how long Mazraoui's out for, whether it's a bad knock. He is yellow flag currently, but it's all going to depend on where you go from there. Now, with Yoro, he is the second last defender I want to talk about. Now, Anderson's another one that is also flagged at the moment, but he's also someone that only costs 4.2 mil. And if you're on wildcard, you could bring him in this week. He may not make it for Southampton, but it's likely that he will be back after that. And Fulham's defensive numbers, as we saw, even against Liverpool, they weren't the best, but they weren't playing with either of their first choice centre backs. And I think moving forward that they will be able to move with him, particularly back in the team. I think the defensive numbers will pick up and the clean sheets will definitely come. And at 4.2, there's not many players that are cheaper in the game in terms of defenders. Now, people talked about Howson from Bournemouth. I just don't recommend him because, yeah, he's 4.3, but he's just not really going to be performing. I don't think, from what I watched last night against West Ham, I don't think they're going to be keeping clean sheets moving forward. So, and I don't think he's going to be scoring goals. So I would think that he's probably like one of the ones that is going to miss out. Now, someone that has scored twice in the last 2 weeks, and I don't think this run's going to continue. However, Nottingham Forest's run of bad fixtures for defenders is soon to end, and he obviously has returned the last 2 weeks with 2 attacking returns, which is fantastic for his owners. But obviously after Brentford and Spurs, it then starts getting good again for Forest. So he is someone potentially, again, you could bring on wildcard. He's only 4.6. He is a cheap defender. And I think Forest's defensive numbers this season have been that good that eventually moving forward, he is going to look really good. So that's the defenders covered. Let's go into the midfielders. Now, the midfielders, everyone's sort of been thinking, Is it Ahmad or is it Enzo Fernandez? Now, there are a few people to keep in mind here. Obviously, Smith Rowe is an option. So he obviously hasn't been playing much the last 3 weeks, but their run of fixtures does open up from here. And I would expect him to start against Southampton. And look, when he does start, he's normally quite attacking. We just have a look at his expected numbers for the season: 0.18 expected goals, 0.11 expected assists. Like, he has been involved. The only thing there is probably a minute's risk, and he's owned by 17.9%. So probably not somewhere where you really want to go. But Bruno Fernandes does make this assist at 14.2%. This dude, since I bought him in, obviously I bought him in after the Leicester game, which was unfortunate. But since then, he's returned 9 points in 3 of the 5 games. And considering that he's played Ipswich, Everton, Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, and Man City in that time, I'm pretty happy with that, because 2 of those games I definitely didn't expect him to return in, and one of them he didn't, but in the other one he did. And moving forward, Man United's run attacking wise actually looks pretty damn good. Like Bournemouth at home, which I'll be there for this weekend, Wolves away, Newcastle at home, which I'll also be there for. The only real game I've got any concern about is the Liverpool away game. But the way that Ruben Amorim seems to be setting the team up even gives me confidence in that game that we could win a penalty and Bruno Fernandes could be taking it. So I really like that. And for the same reasons, that is also why I think that Ahmad at 10.1% ownership is actually the better pick than Enzo Fernandez. I think he's got better fixtures for longer. And I think we've discovered over the last week, or Ruben Amorim's discovered over the last week, that he is the best number 10 starting player in the team. And every time Ahmad gets the ball, and this is definitely part of the eye test, something looks like it's about to happen for Man United. And the numbers over the last 6 weeks since he started returning have been pretty good: 0.28, 0.24, 0.23, 0.41, 0.74 in the 5 games he's returned in terms of expected goal involvement. It's only going to increase. Like the last 2 weeks, obviously, is more where he's been playing as a 10. And yeah, I think there's not much not to like there. At 5.2 mil, he is probably the budget enabler that you should be looking at this week. Anthony Gordon obviously returned as well. 9% ownership now, 7.2 mil. Newcastle's run, as we talked about before, it is looking really good. Attacking wise, he seems to be involved as well, and I'm quite happy with the way he looks. I mean, that run of fixtures coming up, none of them concern me from an attacking perspective until you get to game week 25, 26, 27. So for Newcastle, I think it's all system going. So that's why so many people bring in Isaac, and it's quite logical to bring in Anthony Gordon as well. His stats for the season have been pretty damn good. Obviously, he got the assist on the weekend. He got a goal back in game week 14. So he's been returning fairly regularly. 0.3 expected goals, 0.2 expected assists. Like, those numbers are pretty good. That's over half an expected goal involvement per game. There's a lot to like there in terms of that. Now, Matoma, he's the one that's going for my team, so it's hard to recommend him. I mean, like, he's been unlucky, but it's just not good enough, really. Enzo Fernandez is the other one, 8.9% ownership now. He's 0.1 million cheaper, which may affect people's opinions on who to go for here. But yeah, like, again, his numbers have been super good the last 6 weeks since he's been back in that team. It's hard to see him getting dropped, and like, Chelsea's run of fixtures is really good. There's a world where you could have both of them in your team and be playing them, both of them, and like in a 5-man midfield. I don't mind that if you wanted to spend the money on the defense. I just don't recommend spending money on the defense. That's where it comes to. And if you don't recommend spending on the defense, you're better off spending it up on a midfielder. So, for example, I've also got Fernandez there. And realistically, I could get Mbuemo back in for Matoma. I wouldn't mind that move at all. And then just play the 5-man premium midfield. Now, a player that you probably should be aware of is Eze. I'm not going to look at him this week, but he is someone that is coming into a nice little run of fixtures. Jared Bowen has been unlucky the last 3 weeks. He had 0.5 expected goal involvement last night against Bournemouth, and I actually can't believe he didn't return. It's super frustrating for his owners. It was the same against Leicester in game week 14. I expect him to return over the next 2 weeks. Brighton at home and then Southampton away. He is looking like a very nice pick for the next 2 weeks. And he's one of them players that can potentially return against Liverpool and a Man City. So I wouldn't be too put off by that. And then obviously he's got Fulham and Crystal Palace up following that. So I don't mind him. He plays pretty much 90 minutes every week. His expected goal numbers have been really good the last 3 weeks. For the season, it's 0.21 expected goals, 0.26 expected assists. There is a lot to like there about Jared Bowen. So I wouldn't be put off from him at all. Iwobi is the next one I want to talk about. Now, everyone is talking about the Fulham fixture run coming up. It is looking really good. Southampton start this week. It's a great point of entry. 4.8% ownership, 5.7 mil. He is slightly more expensive. You're literally paying up an extra half a mil from an Ahmad, an Enzo for an Iwobi. but his history this season, he's got 70 points for the year. He's been massively outperforming his XG numbers. He's got 0.13 expected goals, 0.21 expected assists per game, but he just continues to return. And there's no reason to think that he won't continue to do that. He is playing literally 90 minutes every single game, which is also what you want at this time of the year over the Christmas period where, players are going to get rotated. So I think Iwobi is definitely a really good option for you moving forward. He's someone that, just adds a little bit of, I don't know, bit of interesting stuff. Now, Kulusevski, another player I owned at the start of the season, 4.2% ownership. The Tottenham runs, and I don't like recommending Tottenham players, but Tottenham do attack pretty well, and Kulusevski does seem to be involved. And at 6.3, he is cheaper. I don't mind him. He's got 2 goals in the last 2 weeks as well against Chelsea and Southampton. He generally plays 90 minutes. I mean, there's only one game in the last 10 where he's started from the bench. So he's pretty much nailed on for 90 minutes. And then obviously after this week, it's a really nice run over the Christmas period. So Nottingham, Forest, Wolves, Newcastle, I think they're all teams that they can get at and attack. So I think there's definitely some merit to actually considering him moving forward. Wherever you go there, there's an entirely different kettle of fish. Moving forward, the other players that we want to talk about here, Doku from Man City. Now, it's hard to recommend Man City players, but Doku is 6.2% owned. And I watched the Manchester Derby and I thought he was really good. Those numbers don't really tell the story of what I saw in that game, I don't think. But he's got 0.1 expected goals, 0.21 expected assists. He has been injured for a fair bit of this season, but he does look like he's back fit, and I would expect him to be starting. And Man City do have a nice little block of fixtures from 18 through to 23. And I think if he gets back in the team, he's going to eventually start scoring and probably scoring some assists there for Erling Haaland as well. So definitely someone that you can definitely go to. I'm not sure whether it's the risk I would take, but it's definitely someone that I like to look of. Now, the next player I'm just going to type in because it's going to be easier for me to find is Malia Sarr from Crystal Palace. Let's talk about this bloke. Who is he? 5.7 mil. He's had some absolute banana games of late. Like his expected goal involvement per season, per 90, is actually 0.3 expected goals, 0.23 expected assists. So the numbers have been there across the season. He just hasn't been delivering the returns. But in 2 of the last 5 weeks, he's gone nuclear. He obviously got 2 goals and assist against Brighton on Sunday. And against Aston Villa, he got a goal and assist. He's not someone that's not outside the realms of possibility. Like, I wouldn't be bringing him in this week against Arsenal, but post then, he looks absolutely nailed on. He's playing 90 minutes. And I think the returns are there. Like, yeah, just someone I threw up that he has been doing stuff that just hasn't been getting returns, but now he's starting to get some sort of returns over the last 5 weeks. And Crystal Palace still have that nice little run of fixtures coming up. He's definitely somewhere where you can go and not feel too bad about it, I think, moving forward. Now, another player that's coming back from injury, sorry. I need to look at Diego. There we go. Diego Jota, 2.9% ownership. So there's probably people that have kept him the whole season and he's just been out of the team. We know that when Diego Jota is fit, he does return and he can return big. Now, he obviously got a goal from just 11 minutes against Fulham, but his expected numbers for the season are 0.55 expected goals, 0.1 expected assists. Now, if you're looking to triple up on Liverpool and he becomes fit, I would think that he's going to be starting over Darwin Núñez up front. And at 7.2, he's definitely someone I will be looking to bring back into my team, particularly for that triple up on Liverpool for the double game week that is coming up in 24-25. So if you have a look at 24-25, he's got Bournemouth and Wolves. Now, whatever game week it falls in, Everton's also going to be in there. That now looks like a really juicy double up. Whether he'd start both games is another different story. But I would expect once he is fit, that he will become the starting striker again. He definitely offers the most. And he just has the goals in him. And other than the Spurs game, I wouldn't be concerned about that. But I just think I'd want to see him start a game before bringing him in. That's the only reason why he's not a full recommend this week, but he's definitely someone that you should be keeping your eyes on, particularly the closer he gets to be getting fit. Now, the last midfielder I want to talk about is someone that has come back from being injured in the last 4 weeks, and has definitely started delivering some good form. Against Aston Villa, got an assist, 8 points. Against Man United, goal and assist. Morgan Gibbs White, 6.3 mil, 1.3% ownership. He's someone you need to be having a look at. Like the Nottingham Forest run from here is actually pretty good from an attacking sense. And I really like him. I really like him as a pick. 6.3 mil. He's definitely somewhere I might even consider going. And yeah, look, I don't mind him at all. And I think that that's something that you probably should be looking at in terms of differential. He's a nice little point of difference there. And Mohamed Kudos is the other one. Now, he has looked okay the last few weeks since he's been back. He's got obviously the one assist last week against Wolves. Was unlucky not to return against Leicester, a bit like Jared Bowen, and was unlucky against Bournemouth not to return there with 0.31 expected goal involvement for the game. The run of fixtures for West Ham is not the worst, and he's probably the last player that I would recommend looking at, particularly in the midfield moving forward. So yeah, those are the midfielders. Let me know what you think. Are you just toying up between an Ahmad and an Enzo? Let me know in the comments. Or are you looking at some of these left field options which are much lower owned that potentially could bring you up? Now, Brandon Permo is up to 28% ownership. I'm just going to quickly cover him briefly. Here's someone I'm actively looking at bringing back. So he's almost down to 1 in 4 people own him. And I'm not sure if he's going to continue to drop or not. And I could bring him in for the price that I sold him for at this particular point in time. And his expected numbers have gone up per game over the last few weeks. Definitely someone to keep an eye on and probably move there. I mean, Brentford's run is fairly difficult coming up, but he's been going all right. The last 2 weeks, people did not expect him to return. He's got 22 points. So definitely somewhere that you could go moving forward. Now, into the forwards to finish this off. Now, it's hard to find differentials in the forwards because all the good ones are heavily owned. So obviously own Nicholas Jackson and Isaac, both very close now to 30% ownership. And then obviously I've got Chris Wood is also 24% ownership. Cunha is obviously going to drop. João Pedro's, he's just João Pedro. Wiss is probably the first one to look at 10.4% ownership. But as I said, Brentford's run isn't the best coming up, so I can't really recommend him. Averts at 10.1 still looks really good. You'd expect Arsenal to start returning here. I don't know. There's something that's putting me off about Arsenal attack at the moment. Even to the point where I'm like, even considering like maybe there's better options in Saka. But at the moment, I think I'm happy to leave him in. But like moving forward, like the expected numbers are there for Havertz. He just hasn't been delivering. So 0.39 expected goals, 0.08 expected assists. It's just a big piece of your budget. And considering that Isaac and Jackson cost about the same, it's just hard to recommend him at that particular price. Jamie Vardy didn't do much on the weekend, only lasted 58 minutes. Again, they've got the Wolves fixture this week at home. I would expect him to return, but then it's really difficult from then. Liverpool, Man City, and Aston Villa. How many times is he going to return there? I don't think it's going to be that many. So that's what I meant. It's really hard to find like forward options that are differentials that are low owned. Raul Jimenez is someone potentially could look at 5.3%. He is on that really good run with Fulham. The only problem is that he has been coming off, and Munez obviously scored on the weekend against Liverpool. That is a concern for me, which is why I would probably not recommend him. But he is low owned, and it is somewhere he could go. The fixture run does say that he's going to be good. Like his expected goal numbers the last 3 weeks have been relatively poor. Obviously, he started on the bench against Brighton, but the last 2 weeks he's had 0.05 against Arsenal and 0 against Liverpool. So he does struggle against the bigger teams. It'll be interesting to see how he goes against the easier teams, but he's definitely someone that you can keep an eye on. Valentin, obviously, as well, 4.5% ownership. He's been unlucky 2 of the last 3 weeks. In fact, he's been unlucky the last 3 weeks. 0.67, 0.15, 0.44 expected goal involvement and returned nothing. It's frustrating because it's been a nice little fixture run for Bournemouth. But you would expect him, I don't know how good he's going to go against Man United. But the next 3 weeks after that still look really good. So he's potentially still worth a look. He's probably better than a João Pedro at this point, but I'm not 100% sure. Now, Cody Gakpo does seem to be starting at the moment more often than he's not. And he obviously scored against Fulham as well. And that's 2 goals in the last 3 weeks, 3 goals in the last 6. He's literally returning a goal once every other game. So it's not the worst, but I just think there's better options. 7.1 is also still a fair bit of your budget. But Liverpool's run coming up after this week does look amazing. And if you haven't got trip up Liverpool, it's not the worst place to go and have a little squizzy at him. From there, it's really just pot luck with the rest. The only other one that even looks remotely good is Rasmus Højlund. Now, he obviously scored against Nottingham Forest, and that is his only Premier League goal other than the Brentford game back in game week 8 for the season. Now, his expected goal volume is 0.22 expected goals, 0.05 expected assists. And like, why the hell are you recommending this bloke? Well, because he's 1.7% ownership. In the last 3 weeks, we have seen that he is going to be the starting number 9 for Manchester United. Now, he's obviously played against Arsenal and Man City in 2 of those 3 weeks. It gets a lot easier from here on in. And I would expect him to start delivering some big returns. So that is why I'm recommending Rasmus Højlund. Here's my last differential for this week. Let me know in the comments if I've missed anyone this week. Is there anyone else that's standing out that's low owned that potentially I should have looked at, particularly in the defender and midfield status where people are looking for that one cheaper option? Let me know. I'm interested to know. But yeah, that's where I'm looking at. Ahmad's probably the one directly in my line of sight. He is likely to rise and get in price before the end of the week. So he's likely to be 5.3 by the deadline. So if you are looking at bringing him in, I suggest you do so sooner rather than later. Thanks for joining me. That's been the differentials of Game Week 17. Make sure you get on. It will boost your rank, I promise. And normally I call them pretty well. And make sure if you are new, smash the subscribe button as well. That's been the D Unit. See you tomorrow for Wildcard Draft.